Okay, everyone, good luck for this. Okay, in 3, 2, 1, roll the demo here. Hi everybody, my name's Scott Hillier, independent film director and president of ECU, the European Independent Film Festival, founder and president of the All Asian Independent Film Festival, the All African Independent Film Festival, and the soon to be announced All Americas Independent Film Festival. So we're wearing a lot of hats here at the ECU headquarters at the moment, and everybody's running around and going like crazy. But welcome to another ECU Friday Live. We enjoy these very much, and I hope that you do as well. Today's subject is stop motion animation. Now, stop motion is a method of animation where objects, models, and visual components are moved and manipulated in tiny increments and captured sequentially in photographs. Now, it takes an immense amount of patience and hard work to make this look good. I'm always looking at them and only looking at the shadows, because the shadows are what matter to me. If the shadows aren't right, it's not good stop animation. It can be traced back to the early 1900s, and Mahira's going to play us a little clip now of King Kong, which was sort of an amazing example of stop motion and how they made it work. And we're talking 1933 here, and a big hairy man was running all over the city. But it's just fabulous work, and it obviously led on to what we're doing now. It was also Aardman Animations in the UK made the amazing Wallace and Gromit. I don't know how many times that I've seen that with my daughter over the years, but it's truly amazing. Just the sheer amount of work that goes into this is I think it deserves medals. The work. It's great work. We've had some great examples of it here at ECU, and today we've got two animators here who are going to talk to us a bit about their progress, about what they do, how they do it, and we're here to ask questions to learn more about it. First of all, we've got Abraham Herrera. Abraham is a director, writer, and animator, both in live action and stop motion. He enjoys capturing friendly and colorful fables, as well as creepy folk tales. Sounds interesting. He's been in festivals all around the world, and I'm very happy to have you here, Abraham. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Excellent. Where are we talking to you from today?
From Los Angeles, California.
Nice, excellent. Well, that means you're up nice and early for us, so thank you very much. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your history up till now.
So I went to school at Rhode Island School of Design, and for school, the way they structured the major was for film. They made you take live action courses in filmmaking, but as well as animation. So that's kind of where I entered the niche of animation. And at that point in my life, I wasn't the best drawer, so I kind of gravitated towards stop motion animation because I loved working with my hands. I was great at sculpting, and I had already that insight from live action with lighting and camera angles. So I definitely gravitated more towards that. And then just going off from there, I used like my live action film experience and dive deeper into stop motion animation, and have just been doing a lot of work in between then.
You look nice and young, and don't have any gray hairs unless you're hiding them under the cap. But how do you do with the patience of this? Because it takes a lot of patience.
It does take a lot of patience, and especially now with living with cats around, there's always that that fear that they'll touch something and then have to start from scratch. Um, but no,
I would
my
I
hands
would be
have a
gaffer
bunch
I
of
would be gaffer
hair.
taping the cats. I'm afraid I would be gaffer taping the cats somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, Good. Well, you've opened up a couple of angles that I want to explore shortly with you. But in the meantime, I'm going to go to Tessa. Now, Tessa, I will mangle your name, so I'll ask you to introduce yourself when you come on. But Tessa is a writer and director with over 14 years of experience in this crazy industry, and it doesn't tell it all. She's worked on a lot of things, drawn to female heroines and character-driven stories, often infused with a dark and whimsical tone. Founded the Warsaw Animation Film Festival. I like that very much. And, you've won awards all over the place. And we're very happy to have you here because, Curiosa, the film that we played here at Echo, we loved it and we've traveled all around the world with it. So, Tessa, welcome to Echo Friday Live. And why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your story to today?
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is a pleasure, and I wish I could be in Paris to participate in the festival. I hope I will be there one day. And my background is really, so I worked in various different mediums. Stop motion is my absolute favorite, and I think the way I got into film in general is through books, which is maybe shows in my stories because I feel like I've always been more about what kind of story I want to tell than how I want to tell it. Well, I would just focus on the story and then find a medium. So when I was a teenager, I joined a film club and I started working with just making independent short films with semi actors or myself. And then I found animation when I was 16, and I just loved the freedom it gave me. And well, especially then I was very much an introvert, so there was something great about being able to just sit down and create a story alone, from beginning to end, and then share it with the world. And so I did want to do animation very early on, but I also wanted to write and I wanted to be a cinematographer and I did photography. There were all these mediums that I was always fascinated in. And so when I was 18, my first animated film actually helped me to get into film school in Warsaw, but it was it was working with actors. So my BA graduation degree was working in fiction. However, my graduation film was an animated film because in the meantime, I realized I prefer working with puppets. I mean, this sounds bad, but I'm not a total control freak, but there was something about being able to create whole worlds and having power to create that story. And it's a slow process, but it does give you that control. Whereas I found that with fiction, everything was very quick, very stressful, a lot of problem solving. Right now, I'm based in London. After working in the industry, directing kids TV series, there were also Toon Boom animated, and I worked in various different styles. So when I was 30, I decided I would like to actually get a degree in animation and take a step forwards, and that's when I went to the National Film and Television School, which has a very impressive history of student stop motion films. I mean, it's a great school, but also I think its greatest power is stop motion, which is why I really wanted to go there. And I was really happy when I was finally accepted. Yeah, so I graduated with Curiosa, which was screened at your festival, and I have Mary with me here saying hello.
Love it, love it. Um,
So yeah, so this is where I am now. I'm based in London, and I'm developing future ideas.
Perfect, perfect. Well, we're going to come back and we'll play a few clips of Curiosa shortly. Not now. We'll play it again shortly, and because we loved it and our audiences loved it. But I'm going to go back to Abraham a little bit. Abraham, you mentioned something that many of my staff, for sure, and maybe many other people listening to us, wouldn't quite get when you talked about lighting and camera angles. Because you just think of animated, just take the picture and that's it. But tell us a little bit about your expertise and exploits in lighting and camera angles, which actually helps your work. And maybe you can talk about one of the films that we have here. We have a couple of films playing. I think we have one called Stage Fright, for instance. Let's why don't we have a little look at that while you tell us a little bit about your lighting and camera angles expertise.
Yeah, so when I first started stop motion animation, they were explaining to me, especially the walk cycle and how every step that a character has to take, you have to drill a hole through through a wooden plank basically, and underneath grew it and maintain the character, and you do that for every step. And sometimes it becomes a very tedious process, especially when you're on a tight deadline. So a way that I use a lot of my camera angles for this is, instead of having the characters walk, I kind of like explored the spatial dynamic of where they were in the scene, and and then through cutting with angles and juxtaposition, you could kind of get away with sometimes not showing the actual walking. And there's also some moments that you could emphasize emotion with, like in this short film, when you kind of do the slight zoom in, you could kind of see that they're shocked in a way, or they're feeling vertigo or an embarrassment, or something kind of like that. And then same with lighting. Lighting plays a big part in how you add depth into the scene, how you kind of omit certain details and kind of emphasize other details. So before kind of stop motion animation, most of my interests were in live action and live action film. And then I definitely brought that into stop motion animation, and a big goal of mine moving forward would be kind of blending both passions together and ultimately blending both art forms, kind of like the King Kong film you showed earlier, that blended live action with stop motion, like King Kong with the actual planes and the people.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that, King Kong really did exist and the planes were stop motion. But yeah, okay. Just as a technical thing, I'm a DP and deals with lights all the time. I mean, and shadows. Again, shadows are obviously very important in your
Yeah.
world. Has there been a time when one of your cats have moved your light and it's overexposed a bit and you have to go back and reshoot and stuff like that? Or have you picked up a
Yeah,
mistake and
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. There's been, especially well, the best way stop motion could work is if it's in a very dark basement, because that way you control all the light sources. And sometimes there's a window that you think, okay, I've blocked the window with a curtain. There's no way lighting could come, but eventually it changes the whole lighting. And then sometimes, especially if it's a long sequence of animation, it might you'll see it progress because the sun moves throughout the day. So then you'll see kind of the shadows be moving, and then you're like, this doesn't look natural whatsoever. So that's definitely something I've learned throughout, especially from starting off to now, that you need a very consistent light source, or else it'll kind of destroy the illusion of whatever you're creating.
Okay, well, that's great, amazing. I'm going to come back to you shortly to talk about timings, but let's go back to Tessa and the amazing, wonderful Curiosa. We'll overlay a little bit of you talk this through, but why don't you tell us about the birthing and the life of Curiosa?
Okay, so Curiosa is a student film, which which was my graduation film from the National Film and Television School. And I had 2 years there. The first year was developing just ideas and creating a lot of creative, well, expanding your creative ideas. And then the second year was creating a graduation film. So basically, we had 1 year and 3 months from idea to completion, which is pretty fast for stop motion, and it's a 10-minute long film. So I think it happened like really fast. And I know that for some people it might sound like a lot of time, but 1 year for a 10-minute film, I don't think that's really that much. Especially that it was quite an ambitious production, I think. And I also collaborated with students from other departments. So it's also a graduation work of 8 other students from NFTS, like composers, editors, sound designers, writers, producers, so on. From the very beginning, we didn't really work on it as a script, which I think is interesting. It was from the very start developed in pictures, just starting from the first one-liner. And when I was looking for ideas, I was studying retroactive jealousy, which I always thought was an interesting subject. And it's something that I personally felt when I was younger. So the idea of being jealous about something from another person's past. And this eventually developed into this one-liner, because also I love magical realism. It developed into a one-liner being like overly curious girlfriend climbs into her boyfriend's head. And whoever I told this one-liner to already knew it's going to end badly. And also it resonated. So I think I was really, really happy with this one-liner, and I knew that there was a story there. And yeah, just started working on it with also with help of the tutors and trying to figure out what it is that's how it should be told. And the thing, yeah, I think that the tricky part was that we only had 1 year to make it, so we had to be really quick. And with the production designer, another student from NFTS, we had to start designing the sets very early on. So the set you see now, the house was being built and then also being animated before the whole story was locked. And I was working very closely with an editor to finesse the story, because as you know, it's a very slow process. So we'd be animating 2 to 6 seconds of animation a day, basically one shot. So we had to start very early on in order to complete it. And then, obviously at the end it was getting faster. And also the interesting part of, I think, this making this film, like a very ambitious part for me, was also the idea of using actors wearing masks. So the blue called lit parts are when we had mime actors come in for 2 weeks and perform in these really big masks that were made with support by the students, model making students at the NFTS. And yeah, those sequences were done really quickly, actually. If you think about it, it's like about 20-30% of the film was shot in 2 weeks, and those were the last weeks of the year. So that was a bit of a crunch. Yeah, and well, I'm not gonna spoil the story because I think it's worth watching, but it's a cautionary tale about asking questions, and I think it's very relevant to me, and it is personal, obviously, because I did have those issues at some point, but it asks this question whether it's good to know. Is it good to ask and get the answers, or is it better to stay blissfully ignorant, especially when we're speaking about people you fancy or love?
Yes, well, I'm glad that there's no old girlfriends running around inside my head. That would be freaky for both of us. But I'd like to, I mean, the 6 seconds a day thing is just, it's mind blowing for me, just because I have no patience at all in anything. But so I congratulate you on that. But I'd like to ask both of you a question in this, and this is just my silliness about this. But when we shoot a film, I've just been shooting for Amazon right now, and we shot and we overshot, and then they did 15 more takes with 3 different cameras and 6 angles and whatever. How does it work for you guys? You can't afford to overshoot. Well, Abraham, how about you? I mean, every frame is used, I would have thought, right?
Yeah, basically, and we have to kind of really plan beforehand what we will shoot, kind of like create an animatic, something very quick, but it kind and sometimes you even record the voices before and see how that would play out, and you're kind of calculating every second and shot you're going to make, because you can't really afford to have something on the cutting room floor, basically. It's not like live action filmmaking where you overshoot and you have all this coverage, right? Instead, you're kind of very meticulous about what you get.
I sense that's the same for you, Tessa. It seems to me that you're very patient and meticulous and very carré, as we would say in French. There's nothing left on the cutting room floor for you either, I would have thought.
Yes, that's true. I agree with Abraham. That's what you're heading for. I mean, when you're a younger filmmaker, you might experiment more, but knowing how much work it is to create every second of film, you take all the decisions beforehand. And also I was working with an editor, for most of the year, so we were very precise about what we wanted. And then there was also a cinematographer, Rob, who helped set up the shots, which would take some time, and an animator, Ollie, who helped animate it. So before every shot, we'd do a lot of prep. So apart from having the animatic and being very precise of what we want to happen in this particular shot, we'd also discuss how it happens and also film references. So there would be a lot of, I created a lot of footage of myself acting as the character, and then would discuss that with the animators. and that was really helpful. So I don't think it ever happened that well, it obviously happens if something goes wrong or if the animation isn't good enough or you want to change something. But in general, we did not reshoot takes once they were done.
We're going to move on to questions in a second, but I do want to ask, there's a lot of young people in my office right now, and I'm sure they've got lots of questions, but what sort of advice could you give to a young person wishing to get into this world apart from having a lot of patience? Tessa?
Getting into animation or
yeah, stop animation. How does that work?
Well, I think you have to like it. Love it, really. Why I loved it is because there's magic in every type of animation. When you spend a lot of time on it and suddenly you press play and it comes to life, it's nearly like, it's like being a god, really. You're playing God. And I think that's you can feel that very strongly, particularly in stop motion, because it's not like other styles of animation where you can do the beats and then do the in-betweens and you can replay it 100 times. With stop motion, there's something quite magical about the moment where you watch it and it moves. And I feel like the reason why I still do it is because I haven't lost that amazement for it. So I think that's crucial, and that's the very, very heart of doing stop motion. And I think you need to have it if you go into that medium, because otherwise it's just so painstakingly slow. But also what I find, it's quite a meditative thing for me. I know some people don't listen to music, but I do. Like, once I figured out what I want in the scene and what I want to happen, well, I do a lot of that thinking beforehand, and then I'm reacting it with the puppets. And when I'm listening to music, it's nearly like I just really enjoy it, and I feel like it's really good for me as a human to be able to put like 5 hours of focus into just completing a task. But also, I must admit, I don't think I'm made to be a stop motion animator per se. Like, I don't think I love working with people, and I love seeing things coming to life. And I know that when you're doing stop motion, very often you spend a lot of time just working as a stop motion animator, sometimes for years. And that requires an enormous amount of patience and precision that, you need to have for those 8 hours a day, every day. So yeah, I feel like you should do the parts of the filmmaking that you feel most comfortable with and you enjoy most.
Abraham, what about you, man? What advice could you give to these clever young things that are listening to this? What would be your advice to them?
My advice is that any object pretty much could be animated, and I feel especially when coming into stop motion animation, I was a bit intimidated by the puppet making process, or kind of understanding like human anatomy and how joints and everything moves. But then I realized, especially looking through the work of filmmakers like Jan Svankmajer, I really like Czech stop motion animation. And I know that I started seeing how any object could really be animated, and each object kind of has its own set of rules and limitations. And they kind of become a character in a way, and you personify each object in a particular way. And I guess that's how I approach any medium I go into. I see the story and what the story really requires in terms of its theme and its concept. And then I see what medium is best for it. And in seeing what medium is best for it, I kind of see the characteristics that either the character, it could be an object, it could be a puppet, it could be literally anything. And I think that is what kind of the next generation would make interesting. They would discover new characters, new protagonists that you wouldn't imagine could get animated, and that would take it to new frontiers, and that's really what will make stop motion interesting, I think, because with AI, with 3D animation kind of becoming very prominent and everything, there's kind of something that's being set aside with stop motion animation that's very tactile and handmade and you kind of feel the filmmaker's hand, and I think that is something that's still very interesting that will keep this medium fresh for many years.
I love that, and I'm going to come back to the whole AI thing right after we wrap up, but I'm going to hand the floor over to Rodrigo. Rodrigo is the festival coordinator here and the maker of All Good Things, and he's going to host a little question and answer session with some of the ECU crew. So it's all yours, Rodrigo.
Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you, Tessa and Ram, for joining us. Our first question comes from Shuera, that she is going to ask you fishes. We can hear you, Shuera.
Hi, Abraham. Hi, Tessa. Thank you so much for all the inspirations and your experiences. So my first question would be for both of you. What is fulfilling about stop motion, and what makes the tedious work worth it?
I think for me, what's fulfilling is, like Tessa, I'm also really into magical realism, and I love the magical qualities of filmmaking, and that's what I really love about both live action and stop motion. But what's special about stop motion is that you're kind of bringing life into an inanimate object or an inanimate story in a way. When seeing the combination of images put together and then seeing how an object you breathe life into it and it starts moving, it just seems remarkable to me. And by the end of the day, after you have that sequence of images and you see how it's slowly starting to come back to life, then that just brings you joy and motivates you to keep going, I think.
I agree. I think it's what I mentioned about like the pleasure of doing it. But I think from the outside, also the power of stop motion is, knowing that it's made by hand. Like in a world where it's so easy to generate content, I feel like there is value in that imperfection. When you watch a lot of stop motion, you do get used to it. But and I have recently seen a lot of CG content created that looks like stop motion. Which is impressive, a bit worrying, but I embrace it. But I feel like it's always you can really feel the soul of the creators in it, especially in those productions that are more independent and smaller and give themselves more freedom. But something I also really like to embrace when I'm doing stop motion is the ideas that come from the objects. So when you set up a scene and you have it in your hands, these ideas just come, they also come from people you're interacting with, and because it's a slow process, you'll have a lot of time to think about those ideas and bring them to the film. I think that's my answer.
Yeah, well, lovely answers. Thank you so much. And I think we have our next question from Eduardo.
Okay.
Thanks so much for joining us, Abraham and Tessa. Really wonderful to talk to you. So, the question is mostly directly to Abraham, but can get input from both of you. At any case, so Abraham, you talked quite a bit about like how, and naturally because of the medium you choose, how much time goes into actually realizing the film itself. My question was more about how much does it take for you to come up with a story and conceptualize, and how much research you do, because since there is so much work in actually realizing the film, you must be extremely sure of what you're going to be working on, because it's so much work, practical work to do, that there must be also quite a bit of research before starting a project, such as an animated short film, or even worse, an animated feature or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes it takes a while of research and experimentation and just playing around with the medium. There's a short film I'm working on, and that one, it explores a paper medium. So it's a character that's writing in a journal, and we're using kind of the concept of journals and kind of how journals are used with paper and everything. So I've been for the past year just exploring, not even writing it, but just exploring this, what could be done with paper and how that could be integrated in a scene, and how to combine different types of either paper cutouts or just different types of graphics and everything into mixing that with live action, and just doing a bunch of experimentations with it. And then eventually, once I've arrived in a place where I've made enough discoveries and enough areas excite me about it, I think I could then start writing about it more on a screenplay form, and incorporating what I've learned into where I want to take the story. So sometimes it works like that, and then other times it also works where I come up with the story first, and then I do some tests here and there, and sometimes you record yourself or you record your friends and you see how they move, and you experiment that way too. But it varies on the story you want to tell, I think. But I think yeah, research and experimentation and discovery is very important.
Thanks so much. And if Tessa, you have some kind of like similar experience, I imagine if you want to jump in as well, you're welcome to do so.
No, that's that's okay. I can answer the next question. I agree with Abraham.
Sorry, next question.
Sorry, I'm having problems with my computer, so I'm just going to do this one. So this is mainly for Tessa. You mentioned that you got into filmmaking when you're quite young, but was that your first kind of passion, or did you have a passion with the modeling side, the artistic side before that?
Yeah, so I started being passionate about film when I was 15, I think. But it all came from reading books. I was a proper book mole since I was very young. So I knew I wanted to write stories. And I did write stories, for fun, for pleasure. Like some of them were better than others. So it was more about storytelling than animation at the start. And I just, tried different mediums and experimented with these different mediums. But also so my mom paints. I'm not much of a painter, but I've always been exposed to a lot of art. And I feel that must have influenced me very strongly. I do sometimes wonder how my career would have gone if I had studied other things. And I feel like that, that as a creator, you need to live and you need to experience things. And you make your films about your experiences in life, and you can get those experiences by various ways. I feel like I was very ambitious about being a filmmaker very young, and I did get into film school when I was 18. I don't know if that was the best choice. I feel like I moved to Warsaw. It was a big moment in my life because I moved out of my parents' home and I had to learn to live in the big world and interact with other humans than my friends, and it was a big learning experience in general. But yeah, I have been asking myself a lot if going directly into animation was the right thing to do. I don't have an answer to that.
Perfect. So thank you very much for both of you answering our questions. We're going back to you, Scott.
Thanks very much, Eku crew, all the team here, and thanks Tessa and Abraham for that. It's very, very impressive what you do, how you do it. I've got a couple of quick things from you. What I take away from this is you're being God in a way because you're creating something moving from an innate object. I love that. The hands of the artist. I also been exposed to a lot of art and own a bit of art and made films on artists and stuff, and I admire that so much. And I can see that, you can see that in stop motion animation, that's for sure. The future, I think that it's got us all, right? This whole AI, we can create and do this and do that. It's going to be a very interesting thing for all of us as artists, creating somebody can create this, but I think the hands of the artist thing is always going to count, I believe. I think there's always going to be, in our lifetime anyway, it's something that people do appreciate, something that is handmade and better and different and not all done through an algorithm. I just wanted to bounce off completely on a different path here. You guys talked a lot about magical realism. And I was listening to the BBC earlier this morning when I was on my spinning bike, and they're publishing an unpublished book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the master of magical realism. It was written when he was in the middle of or towards the end of his life and deep into dementia, so I'm not sure it's going to be as outstanding and astounding as it was when I first read it, because without reading those books I would not be here today. It opened my mind up to an nth degree of it is possible to do anything and everything, and nothing's just set in stone, and that's what you guys have done of the work that I've seen for you. So we're gonna wrap here. For those of you listening, we're ECU, the European Independent Film Festival. It's the 19th, 20th, and 21st of April here in Paris, France. We've closed for submissions, and we're going to be announcing the official selection in about 20 minutes. So we're going to make some filmmakers very, very happy, and we'd like to think that here at ECU we hope to change people's lives in that aspect of being a independent film director, getting into a festival, and the audience getting the chance to watch great independent films. And everybody needs a bit of independent films in their life. I can guarantee you of that. So we'll be announcing that. The festival's in the middle of April. We have a launch party happening on the 27th of March here in Paris, where we'll be revealing the sizzle reel and things like that. It's good times all up. I'd like to thank our 2 stop motion artists for joining us on this. It's fabulous to talk to you guys, and keep on creating, right? That's what makes us live and breathe through the frustration of it all. I shot some stuff the other night on a camera that didn't work properly, and I love the creative process, and I love every single thing about my job and making things. That it's a bit tricky when the technical things let you down, but the idea that we can go out and create every day, or making 6 seconds of animation every day, is great. So we thank you very much. Please keep us in mind for any of your future works. We, in particular Curiosa, we loved that so much. It was great. Abraham, you can go back to bed, or actually start stoking the flames with some coffee right now. I'd like to thank all of the Eku crew for putting this together, and of course Rodrigo, who brings the power night after night and day after day to Eku. So thank you very much, guys, and we'll catch you next Friday on another Eku Friday Live.
Thank you for having us. Well, I enjoyed this interview very
Pleasure.
much, as the previous one. So thank you for doing it, and thank you for running this festival.
Nice.
Because I know how much work it is, and I know how much passion is needed to keep it running. So congratulations also on having such an amazing community around it.
Yeah, what's a passion and no sleep, and that's what we all know about film festivals. So okay, great. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Ciao, ciao. Bye. Well, there you go, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you
That's
very
great.
much. That was a pleasure.